Okay, ji, let's start discussing the new chapter, that is interview. Interview is one of the way of collecting the data, and when we go for an interview, this is very important point to understand. We never go for interview for a data collection without any purpose. That is, what does that mean? It means when we want to know the problem in detail, when we want to explore the problem, when we want to know more characteristic about the problem, then we go into the detail. And with interview, we go into the detail. So interview is basically a detailed understanding of the problem. Through interview, we collect the data in detail to solve the problem or to understand the problem. Not to solve the problem, but to understand the problem much more. Understand about the problem. So interview requires a lot of resources. You need to be very professional to take an interview, and you need to be very structured. You need to be very well-mannered, so that you can find time from the interviewee. Because it's difficult. For example, you have to interview the CEO of particular industry. So you need to be very punctual and very disciplined, and you have to be very well prepared so that the time given to you is not spoiled. It's very important. Interview can be a one-to-one, or it can be from multiple participants. For example, you can conduct a focus group. To focus group, you can collect the data from multiple participants on the same point or on the same agenda. The interviewer is basically the one who moderates the interview. For example, if you are asking a question, what do you think about the retail industry? So the question is asked. Now it is the responsibility of the interviewer to digress. Whenever the interview is digressing from the retail business, retail industry, then he must object and bring him to the same course. This is very important. Plus, it is a very lengthy task. When you go for an interview, you collect the data of more than 1 hour, and for an hour, and you have to transcribe the whole interview. So it's a very lengthy and very difficult process. So you take the help of a software to understand much more about the discussion or the interview. There are multiple softwares are available. You can work upon that, and so that you can analyze the data from the interview. The purpose of the interview is to get the data. So data cannot be collected with the words. So you have to transcribe, and then you have to go through the process of analysis. Multiple kind of analysis are there. It's not the scope of our discussion right now, but there are multiple ways you can analyze the data of interview. Okay. Now, when we talk about the primary from secondary data collection, it is the primary data collection through which you directly collect the data from the source. When you collect the data from the source directly, it is called the primary data collection. The interview is one of the way to collect the data from the source directly. That is called primary data. Next, आगे चलिए. Okay. You need to plan, design, and carry out a personal interview. You need to guide. It must be a guided one. Purposeful conversation. It must be a purposeful. It cannot be gossip. It cannot be waste of time. It must be a purposeful. There are many different types of interviews. Individual interviews can be unstructured and structured. Very important point. The interview can be structured or unstructured. What does that mean? Any idea?
So you have particular questions to ask.
Yes. Yes.
Pre-planned questions.
Different question.
You do a conversation and you can pick out the points.
G. Sequential question. Very good. So what is sequential question? Structured, unstructured? Structured. So what is correctly you defined both. So now we talk about the semi-structured. What is semi-structured?
Which is halfly structured and halfly unstructured.
Okay, let's take an example of everyone so that you understand it better. Unstructured is the one where you have not defined the scope. For example, how do you define research? This is an unstructured question. When you openly, you do not define the scope and you say, how do you define? What do you think about it? So that is basically when you give the open field to the interviewee and he makes his perception, his argument or talk about it. And through that you ask question more without any structured written matter. The next question would be the question from the answer of the interviewee. So you are taking out the questions from the answer of the interviewee. I am repeating myself. You are making questions through the answer of the interviewee. So because you don't have much knowledge about the topic, so you are trying to collect the data through the answer of the interviewee. In the structured, you have an idea about the topic and you have pre-planned sequentially made the questions one after another. Like in the interview, job interview, you and I mostly have been asked multiple questions. So mostly they are semi-structured. In the semi-structured, what happens? They have the open-ended questions and they have the closed-ended questions, and plus they have the sequential questions as well. So when you have multiple kind of questions with you, it is semi-structured questions. Okay, when you give the open field to the interviewee, when you ask a question which is already written on your paper, sahi hai? So you are asking both kind of questions. So that is called the semi-structured. Got it? And any question? Okay. So group interview, I already discussed. Focus group is a very interesting one. Maybe you would get an opportunity in life to be part of the focus group. Focus group is basically, for example, if I want to know more about the students of private university students, so I would go for a focus group. Focus group would be, now the focus group must be made in a manner that all the stakeholders must be there. For example, students, teachers, staff, parents, all must be there, so that you get to know the real perspective of all of the stakeholders. Very, very important. So the representation of all the stakeholders must be there. Otherwise, the focus group will not be giving you right information. That is very important. Move ahead. So there are advantages and disadvantages. Advantages are many. You already know that if you want to know much more about the topic, and if you want to know the expert opinion about the topic, if you want to explore the topic more, you go for the interview. And the disadvantages are, it requires a lot of time, because in 1 hour you get the data of 10 pages, 20 pages, and in the 20 pages data you have transcribed requires a lot of time to understand it. That's why you require software for that. NVivo is a software which usually use over here in interview, in understanding interview and taking out the important points out of it. So you see, it's very time consuming, and the interviewee, the people who you want to interview, is not approachable most of the times. One of our colleagues who made an interview of a CEO, he was doing his PhD from Finland, and he told me that 1 year it took me to get appointments from most of the CEO. It took 1 year. So 1 year was the waiting time. He collected the data from only 10 CEOs, but 1 year it took, because not every CEO was available. for his interview. So you see when you are given time after 6 months, for example, 6 months of period, somebody has given you a time. So how precious the time is. You cannot skip a single. There are times when you have more than one people with you, just to write it down, transcribe. Say as a witness, whatever you are listening from the interviewee, it is being observed, it is being taped. You tape record it. You tape record every single word with the permission of the interview. Obviously, it is ethical, and you without permission you cannot record, and without recording you cannot analyze the data. Telling you, you cannot keep everything in your brain. It's very difficult. Obviously, there are times when when you find an appointment of a very important expert and he does not allow you to record it, so that is a separate case. But usually you prefer to have a recording equipment with you. Okay? So that is all about the interview. Any questions so far? Anything which is unclear? Okay, let's move ahead.